and preparing for your first season as a rookie, when in those moments of minicamp and training camp and so forth, are you feel like I'm bringing something to the table? Is it during the scrimmage drills where you're like able to kind of show, okay, this is what I can do on a field of football players?
You know, it's funny you say that. So we used to go to training camp at Olivet Nazarene University, which is like a small college in Illinois, and so like there's tons of fans. It's like a destination. It's like a Chicago Bear tradition that like people go to training camp. It's like a summer vacation for these people. They're crazy about the Bears. So every practice, there was 15,000 people there. So like you learned quickly, like you're playing in front of people. Every day there's an article written, rookies, who's playing, who's not playing. And really like when it first kicks in, like, all right, is like that first time after practice when like one of the veterans come over and says like, and like brings you into the group and talks to you and you're like, all right, these guys are like waiting to see what you're going to bring, waiting to see like what you can do for the team. Are you going to be a loudmouth? You can be a know-it-all. You can be like, or are you going to be a guy who comes in, keeps his mouth shut, puts his head down, works. And then like once you earn that respect of those guys, the Urlachers of the world, the Lance Briggs, the, you know, those proven veteran guys on the team that we had, like that was a great feeling. Like you'd go back to your dorm at night and been like, these guys are accepting me because they're seeing what I'm doing and I'm like earning their respect and I'm earning their trust. And like all of a sudden now they're including you and they're talking to you and they're going at, like you feel like you're one of the guys.
Do you remember who the first vet was?
Urlacher had a really unique way. You know, he was one of the marquee names and faces of the entire league when I got drafted, you know, especially coming off the Super Bowl. And I'll never forget, you know, just being in the weight room, you know, as a rookie and you know, some of the veteran guys had a little more privileges than others. And like, if they didn't want to work out with the veteran group, they could come in earlier and get their workout done when the rookies were in or whatever. And I remember one day like laying down on one of the benches or whatever. And I looked up and he's like, hey, do you mind if I work in with you? And I look up and it's Brian Urlacher. I'm like, you can have the bench. Like, yeah. He's like, no, I'll just work in with you in between sets. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, no, I'll go over there. Like, you can have it. And he's like, no, let's do it. Like, let's do it together. Like, he didn't know me from Adam, you know, and he was a guy for his stature to like look after a rookie who he didn't know and just make him feel comfortable. And like, once Brian Urlacher shows like, hey, no, this guy's cool. Like this guy, he's one of us. He can play. He can bring a lot to the team. Then it just kind of falls into place because once he sets that bar. And it was something that I always tried to keep in mind as I got older. Like, I never wanted to be the veteran guy who made the rookies feel scared enough. They're nervous enough. Like, yeah, they need to be challenged. They need to be pushed. They need to be held accountable. They need to earn that respect. You don't just give it. But you also don't have to go out of your way to compound the anxiety and compound, you know, what they're feeling. And I learned that at a young age from, you know, guys like Brian and the way they treated not only me, but just all of the young guys. And, that made like a lasting impression on me from as a young kid.
Being a fan of the NFL, a big fan of Washington since like 1982, and you pay attention to the depth of the roster, and so we watch a lot of players, and you kind of get these guys that you become favorites of during the off season. You want them to make the team. They seem like they got a little something special about them, but they're fifth or sixth on the depth chart, right? They're going to get cut. So you being a first round pick, if everything goes well, you're going to be fine, right?
Yep.
I'm sure you didn't feel that way in the moment, but now that you've been through your life, you understand that. Are the guys, you're all rookies in the basement of this place. Is there this sort of weird sort of chip on everybody's shoulder that's sort of around the fringe that's like, you know, we can't be pals. I got to beat you to get here.
Yeah. Yes. Typically, there wasn't a ton of rookies at every position.
Yeah.
You know, so like I think there was only like one other tight end that was there with me as a rookie. Yeah. So like the rookies almost felt like made like alliances. Like the rookies were like the connective tissue that like kept guys into it and kept guys, you know, feeling comfortable, and they could kind of relate and share because they were all in very similar positions. But yeah, I mean, there was veterans who, when guys came in and rookies, especially if they were drafted at your position or high pick, they weren't going out of their way to make this easy for you.
Right.
I was very fortunate that I was always around guys who were very good to me and very open and welcoming and never took me as a threat. So I was very fortunate, but that's not the case for everybody. You know, and I get it, right? Like, it's not easy to stay in the NFL, and who wants to help the guy who's coming to take your job? Like, I get that. I my approach was always, I'm going to do everything I can to help the young guy, even if he's at my position. But you're going to have to be damn good to ever beat me.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to, I'm going to help you. I'll answer your questions. I will never make your life hard, but I'm going to make your life impossible to take my job. And that was always my approach every single year. But like, I had guys who were great to me as a rookie, and I always remembered what that felt like. So I made sure like I always paid that forward when I got older. But yeah, sir, the thing about being the rookie, right, back to your first point, the thing about being the rookie and the new guy on the team was the guys who really understood the NFL and the culture of it, every single day was like a life and death, whether you were going to be on the roster.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting, but it's the only way. Like, the second you feel like you've arrived, I don't care if you're a rookie or you're in your 10th year, the second you think you got it, someone's passed you by. You have to come in every single year like you're fighting to make the roster.
Yeah. How often does it happen where you see a guy gets cut that you thought that was a mistake?
A lot.
Yeah.
The rule is, if there's not a couple controversial cuts on final breakdown, your roster sucks.
Yeah. That makes
right?
sense. Yeah.
If you want to cut guys, and I know this sounds terrible, but the ideal scenario for a team is on their final wave of cuts, that last 6 to 8 guys, when people cut them, be like, we cut Dale? Dale's really good. When we weren't that good, everyone knew on day one of training camp who the 53 were.
Yeah.
When we were good, it was like, we got 65 guys who can make this team. Yeah. It's going to be really interesting to see which 53 they keep.
Yeah.
That's when you're good.
Sometimes I have a hard time deciding whether I like a player at a fringe, at that, that's on the bubble, because of who he is rather than how good he is or his talent. Does that make sense? So,
and that's the way it should be.
So there's times when I'm like, man, they should have kept him, but it was really because
you liked him.
I liked him, but he wasn't really going to contribute.
Yeah, and I mean, think of it in your world, right? As you put together your team, your crew, your crew chief, your pit guys, right? Like, it's not all talent based. When you're building a team, the culture and the relationships amongst and what certain people bring to certain scenarios are every bit as valuable and it's every bit as impactful as they're just a talent.
Yeah.
So when you put together a team, so like in our world where the culture of the team is everything, and of course talent is primary, those last couple spots, those are like culture building guys. And I've seen guys hang on in the bottom of a roster who every year there's probably 5 more talented guys that get cut because there's just something about that guy. It's his work ethic. You just always can count on him. He's in at every practice. He's the first guy down on kickoff. He's the first guy in conditioning drills. You never have to. Those spots, sometimes for a coach, I don't want to worry about my 53rd player on the team. Mm-hmm. If my 53rd player on the team is a headache, he's gone. I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Right? So like, when you're built so much, the best teams that do it and win consistently, they understand that it's not necessarily always a collection of talent. It's a collection of talent pieced in with like glue guys, we call them. Like, they're the glue that like keeps everything going. They're not the fastest guy. They're not the best player. But like, there's just something about that guy. You need him on the team because he keeps everything together. He keeps things moving forward. Like, so to your point, like, good guys very often get the benefit of the doubt. And I don't mean good because they're a Boy Scout. I mean good because they're tough, they're reliable, they're consistent, they're hardworking, they're durable. Like, those qualities make them a good guy, and those guys last for a long time.
If you like that conversation we were having with Greg Olsen, you ought to listen to the entire podcast. The Dale Jr. Download is available on all major podcast platforms.